I have a book in me. This is my friend, my brother.
Thank you, Kelly and Oliver.
I'm a multi-award winning best-selling author.
If you want to start a new business, I suggest you write the book on it.
God woke me up at 2:30 in the morning and I wrote a book.
Some of you got books already. Some of you got novels already.
The lead generator is the book.
You write a book, you leave a legacy to your children.
And I hope you guys listen to these guys so they know what they're talking about.
What's up, everybody? I'm the publisher, Mr. Kelly Cole.
And I'm the writing coach, Dr. Oliver T. Reid, the relationship architect.
Welcome to Books-N-Brothas podcast tonight. And tonight we got a special guest in the building. Famous author and poet, historian. We're going to big her up. I call her EC. I'm going to let her pronounce her name and tell you guys a little bit about herself.
Hey, how you guys? Well, my name is Yecheilyah. Everybody call me EC for short. Y'all might as well too. Just don't call me EC. And so, shalom, peace to everybody. You know, hair grease, shea butter, all of that.
Hey.
As they already say, I'm an author, poet, and you know, I like to keep it simple. So
Good stuff. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Like I told you before we push record, it was such short notice. I saw you dropped your new book, and I was like, yo, we need to get her on. And I hit Doc up. I was like, yo, what do you think about having EC on? He was like, yeah, dope. And he was like, let's do it. So that's why we hit you up. But Doc's going to be running pilot. I'm the co-pilot tonight. And we're just going to piggyback, and we're going to get into it. Cool?
Ooh, let's do it.
All right, Doc.
I'm so excited. I'm excited, EC. EC in the place to be with the shea butter. We talk about all of that. It's exciting, man. It is exciting to when I look at your website. I would say I'm always stalking your page. Basically because you have content, you know, and when you're another writer, all of us on this podcast tonight are writers and literary artists. It's so refreshing in all of this noise to see rich, good content. And as Kelly was saying earlier, you dropped a new book. But before that, you are a serial, multi-published author. You know, and this is what I love about it. You ain't just do it one time. You've been doing it. I mean, from everything from poetry, I think you got some novels. How did you feel? My first question is, what led you into? How did you feel when you first started writing, and what was some of the beginning or behind the scenes? We see you now, but how did you start?
Well, I started very young. I was about 12 years old. And one of the things that I used to do all throughout grammar school and all throughout high school that I encourage other aspiring writers to do is I always had a journal or a diary. And I didn't really use my diary as a diary. There wasn't like stuff that was really secretive about it, but I used it to write. So I started writing when I was 12 years old, and it was mostly poetry. Poetry is like my first love. Poetry is my baby. It's the beginning of everything. It was the first book I ever published, and it's the first form of writing I ever did. So I would say that's how I got started, is that I feel like just like when somebody plays sports, they have to train and practice.
Yeah.
Keeping a journal was my way of training and practicing. So it helped me to not forget about it all as I was growing up and, you know, going on into high, you know, in high school when they ask you, oh, what do you want to be? And you got to write those autobiographies. I always knew I wanted to be a writer because I had been doing it and practicing consistently.
Awesome. So you from the beginning, from a childhood, and I'm about to pick on you. You know, I like to pick on my brother Kelly, right? Just because y'all from the shy, don't mean y'all gotta do everything when y'all kids. You know, it seems like y'all had all that. I say, oh, y'all gonna try to double team a little country boy here. We got Shy Town doing it early, but that's awesome, man. You were doing it from a kid.
Yeah, and so I didn't get into my first time experience in publishing was kind of a mess. It was 2008. It's funny because the first book I ever published wasn't the first book I ever sold. So it actually started with an assignment. I was going to Chicago State University, and we had to write an article or essay on racism and discrimination in America. And so what the teacher didn't know is that was like my passion, you know. So my essay turned into a book. And of course, I didn't turn it in, but that was the first thing that I ever published, try my hand at publishing. And I just kind of passed it out to classmates and friends and stuff like that. And then in 2010, that's when I published my first collection of poetry and really started thinking about it as a business. Like, okay, I could sell this. Like, I don't have to just publish it. I could, just put it out there.
Awesome, because one of the things I got so excited when thinking about you, I just wanted to give that backdrop. We're going to be talking about tonight, really dealing with writing to restore Black historical truth. Writing to restore Black historical truth. And anytime I see you, whether it's indirectly on a post, we've actually met in person at a couple of events, you've always been true to who you are. And I think that's so important given the climate of what we are facing, historical truth. I'll just say when I had a chance, I grew up, for example, going to a predominantly white high school. But I lived in the hood. So we were bussed out in the hood. And I remember all the history classes, history lessons and all of that. It didn't come real to me until I actually went to Winston-Salem State University, Historically Black College, and I took my first history class. And I was really just taken aback when my professor said this. He said, that book you bought, all that stuff y'all did, y'all bought it, with y'all financial aid. He said, I want y'all to take that book. And this was a Historically Black College. He said, take that book back, get your money back, and buy something else with it. He said, I don't care if you buy Skittles. I don't care whether we're not going to open that book the entire time. And he taught us history from another perspective. And so just leading into that, I don't know if you had anything before we went into that, Kelly, but do you have anything before we go into that part and I start talking about that part of your life?
No, let's go. Go ahead.
All right, so definitely tell me a little bit about that. You write a lot of stuff that is geared to bringing historical truth to us as a Black generation, as a Black race, African American, African race. Can you share a little bit how your plight started there?
Yeah. Wait, say that one more time, you cut off.
Yep. So I was saying how, from a standpoint, you write from a historical things that enhance Black history,
right,
or truth. How did your plight start there? How did that come about?
Right. Well, the first book that got me interested in writing from that perspective was Mildred D. Taylor's Roll Us Under Hear My Cry. And about the Black Southern family, growing up on the land during the time of that, a lot of lynchings and stuff taking place. And that really, because I read that as a kid, and it was kind of like, that was the first time, because they don't really teach you real Black history in the school systems. I mean, the educational system, you're well trained, but you're not very well educated. So they wasn't really going into that in the schools. So when I started reading books on my own and educating myself through those books, that's when I really became interested in digging deeper into our history as a people. So that was the first book. And then Native Son by Richard Wright. And so then I started thinking like, wow, let me dig deeper into my history. And it's funny because I was taking an African American studies class at the time, and they wasn't teaching this. You're not reading about the autobiography of Malcolm X. You're not reading Medical Apartheid by Margaret Washington. You're not reading any of these things. So I started reading, started researching, started getting into the scriptures too, getting into the Bible, looking to see, like, wait a minute, we were there, we were, the Israelites, Egyptians, they were Black-skinned people, and start seeing our true presence. There we go. Start seeing our true presence beyond slavery and beyond the things that we were taught. And that's when I really developed a passion for it. And as far as writing about it, there's something really fascinating to me about sitting at the foot of the elders. Listening to my father-in-law talk about picking cotton, listening to, the elderly men and women. And I love being able to go back to a time before I existed. Like, you can read about it, you can watch the movies and stuff like that, but for people who lived in a time before I was born, that's fun to me. So I'm like, okay, well, I didn't experience the Harlem Renaissance, but I could write about somebody who experienced
Yeah.
it, and I could help my readers to see what it's like to meet a Langston Houston, what it's like, Langston Hughes, what it's like to meet a Zora Neale Hurston and have that experience. Because if it was a time machine, I would want to do that. Like that's why I started writing about it.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, sitting at the feet of your elders, because that's one of my biggest regrets is that both of my grandfathers passed away, and I regret not spending enough time with them, like getting their story, like, you know, just learning about manhood, how they grew up, and getting their backstory, and just see what type of things they could have poured into my life. But I spent so much time, you know, trying to get them to buy me stuff that,
Right.
you know, as a kid, you really don't get it. Like, yo, you could really learn something from just sitting at the feet of your elders. So if you got some young people listening to this, go talk to your grandfather, go even talk to your father, and yeah, soak up that knowledge, soak up that wisdom.
I love what you said. I'm all about it, you know, from somebody who grew up in church, who grew up in, you know, and really coming to understand about our place inside of the scriptures. It's just an eye-opening thing. And as you see going on now, from Black Panther losing Chadwick Boseman to everything that's going on, there's been this movement that I feel is coming back. You said something. I love Raising in the Sun. I love Langston Hughes. I love the way they captured that point of history, the Harlem Renaissance. I'm gonna ask you, do you feel like we're in another Renaissance area right now?
I do think, you know, it's funny because there are these periods of awakenings among Black people that I think comes around. Like, you know, of course, during the 20s, it was the new Negro movement. During the 60s, the Civil Rights, the Black Panther. During the 90s, you had a movement where, you know, everybody got the dashikis and the big aunts and all that stuff. So today, I absolutely think that there is a movement. And it usually, interestingly enough, is like, it kind of starts with like natural hair and the clothing we wear and stuff like that. And then it goes on to more political and social awareness. So I definitely think that we're living in a time now where Black people specifically are waking up to not just another movement, but waking up to the truth of who we are as a people. Not because a movement moves, it passes, you know, and then there are different generations, but we are returning to who we always been. It's just like using natural hair as an example, because I have natural hair and I didn't always have natural hair. So when you decide to grow your hair out of your head, that's not a movement. It's not like a fad. It's not a phase. It's returning to what was naturally there. So when we see all the protests and the everything going on, I absolutely think that we are beginning to realize how important we are as a people and how important our history is as a people. So yes, I would absolutely agree that there's a spirit among Black people that is not just like physical, but it's also spiritual. Like we really are waking up to who we are.
I believe that. I believe that. And, you know, I might, depending on how I feel tonight, I might just say, can you spit something? Because you said something with the poetry. I know you got some stuff that really share something as far as that, you know, so I'll prepare you later on if we get to that point, because I just felt led to say that. But, you know, I ain't putting you on the spot because I know you got it in you. But the thing about it is, but because when you said that, I just look at everything from the name. I believe, you know, the name is so important, but poetry, you know, in the 90s, I thought there was another kind of renaissance.
Right.
When it came in hip hop and different things in poetry, because by nature, that's how I started. I started with, for example, writing poetry, and as a means of expressing it, just kind of built out from there. What is your favorite artist, favorite poet?
What is what?
Your favorite poet. Your favorite.
Oh, my favorite poet. Oh, there are so many. Obviously Maya Angelou, Gwendolyn Brooks. I love Gwendolyn Brooks. I think it's a Chicago thing because she's from Chicago.
Yeah, I'll go.
Baby.
We will, because it's funny because like, okay, when people from Chicago, it's like you're able to understand the language and stuff like that. So when she say certain things and when she talk about the lights being out, when she won the puzzler and stuff like that, like I know what that's like, you know.
Right.
So so Gwendolyn Brooks, Sonia Sanchez, Nazaki Shang, I really love her. I had posted it to my pages for color girls who consider suicide. I really like that. The book specifically, I tend to like the books more than the movies or the films, you know, into it. So those are some of the, of course, Langston Hughes. I tend to like the classics, the classic poets, studying them and all of that good stuff. So those are a few.
Yeah.
Dope. I'm gonna shock you, Doc. You didn't even know I started off writing poetry.
What?
That's how I started.
These Chi-Town people get together, you see?
I released 2 poetry CDs back in the day. They'll never see the light of day, but I just want to let y'all know they out there somewhere.
Yep. Y'all been holding out.
For sure. Never see the light of day. He didn't even know that.
I didn't even know that. We learn something new every podcast. I done traveled the country with this guy. And known him for years. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Undercover poet. Look at that.
What motivates you? I mean, because I ask this question a lot. You know, when you write a lot of books, you experience the success. I think you do blogs or PBS, or you actually publish people as well. But you actually have written books and series. Because as I was going through your website, I saw series of things that you've done. What still gets you up in the morning and say, hey, I want to write again? But somebody who's watching me say, I got 1 book out, 2. I mean, I couldn't even count. I think I lost count after a while of the books that I see you have. First of all, I'm going to ask you, what motivates you? But I'm always going to ask you, how many books have you published so far?
I published 14 so far, but not all of them are available. Me and Kelly was talking earlier, and I retired a lot of my beginning work just because I believe when you know better, you do better. So the quality I wouldn't be proud of.
Right.
But what motivates me, just life in general, you know. Obviously Black history and what our people have endured, but life, reading is a big motivator because that's how I started. I started developing a passion for writing because I read a lot. There's a meme floating around somewhere. I don't know who be writing these memes, y'all. Like somebody needs to put their name.
Somebody needs to do their thing. I don't know.
But it's the meme that says, I was reading before Kindle made it cool. And anybody in my family would know that that's true. Like I was always an avid reader before I was a writer. And that was the first form of motivation for me because it's like, wait a minute, I want to write a story like this. Or I want to write a poem too, you know. I could do it too, you know. And then just I'm inspired by life. I'm inspired by people. I'm inspired by real things that people go through, real things that I go through my life. You know, it's like the deepest stuff can come from like, I don't know, washing the dishes or folding the clothes or just living everyday life. You know, it doesn't always have to be some grand depth to it. Sometimes it's just things that you're experiencing within yourself. I always look at poetry as, I feel like poetry is like one of the reasons I use soul a lot is because it's like that's the soul of a person. Like you really want to know how somebody feels and what somebody going through, and you want to know the truth of it, no sugarcoating, no, read their poem. It don't have to be like magnificent and all dressed up. Read a poem, and that would tell you a lot about how that person is feeling on the inside because it's just something about poetry that makes you really feel your soul. So I'm inspired by reading. I'm inspired by Black history. We are beautiful people. Like I've never seen, I just love my people. And it's funny because me and my husband joke all the time, whether we doing something bad, don't go out there doing no bad, y'all. I ain't saying go out and be all rebellious. But whether we acting a fool or, you know, educating, there is nobody like us. Like we're literally just a soulful people, you know? So I could watch somebody, I could on you know, walking down the street and I could you know, listen to somebody talk and be inspired to write a book like, you know, what would happen if, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I agree. We're so creative, especially from Chicago. You know.
I know,
Same as well.
I mean, you get two Chicago people, it's just gonna happen.
We're just creative.
I've been set up. I've been bamboozled.
Yeah. Just something about, man, the culture of Chicago. Like, I just love it. Like, I love the culture of Chicago, but I do not like the city. It's so evil. It's just a place I wish my family would get out of. It's just so bad. Like, every time I go there, it's just something happening. Even on my mom's block, she still lives there in the hood on Chicago Avenue and Central. So I'm begging her to get out of there. But
I wouldn't want to live in Chicago again. I visit, but I wouldn't want to live.
Not at all. You couldn't pay me to live in Chicago. Like I said, I like to go visit, eat the food, get out of there.
Yeah, it's dope to go visit, like, especially for the food. Ain't no like Chicago food.
I love food.
If you a tourist or something like that, or you just visiting a family, it's good. But I agree, I wouldn't want it.
Good stuff. All right, bro, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that part, is so important about the love of the people. Yeah. And I say this, me and Kelly, we say this a lot of times, like, I would write books for free. Mm-hmm. Right. I was doing it before. Like, one of the biggest things that I always talk to young people who want to write a book, say, hey, what's really your purpose? And I see your passion in it. Where do you go from here? And I kind of asked a little bit on the other question about you achieved a high level of success, 14 books. And then that's not even counting, you're saying, without the stuff that you had to put out, right? That's not even counting the stuff you say, hey, I might have to go back and look at. What, I talked about the motivation, but where do you go from here? What's the next phase?
I think about that a lot. And what I really want to do is, I'm at the point now where, I'm not going to say I've written enough. I think that I would always write, but I'm at the point now where I really want to start helping to publish other people on the grand scale, on a bigger scale. I'm really looking to expand my team. And, one of the other things that motivate me to write is, now that, because it's writing is one thing, and let me clarify that, it's one thing to write. Publishing is kind of a different thing too. Yeah. It requires a whole other set of skills and stuff like that. So I'm at a point where I will always write, but I want to perfect publishing enough to help other people to publish. And I'm pretty sure Kelly could relate to this too. So I want to help other people on a grand scale, because it's not just about me. And I feel like I get the most fulfillment when I can see somebody else that I helped to achieve. Because outside of writing, I'm also a teacher. And even though I teach children, it's the same thing, to where once you can see that you've been able to successfully pass on something that to somebody else, that's when you really know it. I think it was Albert Einstein that said, if you can't teach a 6-year-old in a way to where they can understand it, you don't know it well enough. And we could take this into, if you can't teach it to the point to where somebody understands it and they do better than you, like, that's the point. Like, they go on, that's your biggest, I guess, if you want to stay successful, whatever you want to call it, is when you can see somebody who is inspired by your journey that you help train and mentor to go and do the same thing, and they do better and they exceed more. Ain't no feeling better than that, because you didn't keep your pearls to yourself. You didn't keep your talents and your skills to yourself. You expanded on your talent. So that's what I would like to do, is to help more people.
Good stuff. So the biggest question I always get as a publisher is, people want to know, how do they start? What advice would you give someone that want to write a book but don't know where to start? How would you tell them to start?
You just got to do it. Listen, when I say my first published book is a mess, now, my first published book is not the first book that I sold, but my first published book, after I finished writing it, I used the school printer.
Go ahead.
Come on.
And don't do this, y'all. And printed off copies and handed them out to my classmates. I went around handing out copies of printed paper to my classmates and family members. And I did get a copy made with a proper binding for myself, but that's how if I wouldn't have done that, if I didn't take that assignment and say, let me self-published a 3-part essay on racism and discrimination in America. Because, you know, when you're younger, you full of fury and passion. You're like, I know you said write a paper, Professor Sir, but this is deeper than this. So I just got to writing, and that helped me to know where to go when I decided to get serious about it and write what I call a real book. So I would say there's really no way of doing it except to do it. You just have to literally sit down, finish it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because like you just have to get it out first. And then after you get it out, that's why it's called a first draft. It's the first draft. It's the first tool. Like, it's not meant to be going back and making edits and trying to figure out what part. You don't even got to think about the parts that go together first. You just got to get it out. And then once you get it out, that's your first draft. Walk away from it, go do something else, come back to it, have somebody help you put the pieces together. So that's what I would say. I just started just by sitting down and writing. Sit down in a chair, open up a Word document, and literally just write what's in your mind to write, and then fix it when you finish.
That's it. Good stuff. All right, bro.
Yeah, just get it done. I like that, you know, because at the end of the day, it's that first draft. You know, it's almost like we end with a quote. We ain't there yet, but we end with a quote just like that. You know, we end with a quote every show. We're just getting it going, right? And that's the biggest thing. Now, I kind of gave you a warning, and you know, you could refuse, but I would love to just hear, because I like to, you know, one of my favorite movies, Love Jones. I like when they just the melancholy of it. But at the end of the day,
Chi-Town film this Chi-Town. I ain't want to cut you off.
You got to be very quiet. But can you give us a piece of something you can read it, or something that comes to mind that will inspire at a time like this or a day that we're in?
Okay. So I'll do Her Skin. It's the first poem in I Am So, and it's dedicated to all of the chocolate girls out there who grew up thinking that they're not beautiful, they're not pretty, and you know, like y'all said, we're living in a time where, you know, people are awakening to self-love and who they are and stuff like that. So this is dedicated to something about that. She has heard for too long now that her pores bleed the color of slave ships, that chains have been seen in her smile, that her skin shines like a beacon of shame, sprinkled at Miss Mississippi cotton fields. Sometimes her beauty sticks out. Like the moon against a pitch black sky, they notice her, and still, she is only pretty for a dark-skinned girl. Who do she think she is, being darker than a brown paper bag? The truth is that she is the color of the goddesses, a dark chocolate kiss neatly wrapped in silk. Want to touch her face just to see if it's real, just to see if it'll melt underneath my fingertips, but instead I'll keep my hands to myself. I don't want to be responsible for the rose petals. I don't want to be responsible for the rose petals in her skin, this delicate rose petal of a woman reborn in the spring. I don't want my touch to taint her beauty, where not even the bite of winter dares to diminish her light. And that's that piece.
Hey, ain't it all right? Hey, let's do that. Let's do that, Sean. Let's do that.
First time ever. First time somebody spit something on the podcast. Appreciate you for doing that. Plug that. You said that's from your new book. Plug the new book.
Well, actually, that's from I Am Soul, but the new book is My Soul is a Witness.
Okay.
YecheilyahYsrayl.com. At Yecheilyah on Instagram, at Yecheilyah on Twitter, and Yecheilyah Books, Yecheilyah Books on Facebook.
Dope. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes, guys. That was fire. So make sure y'all get her books. Bro, wrap it up. One more question, and we need to get out of here. Thank you so much for spitting that. That was fire.
I'm stuck on that. The Mississippi cotton fields. I'm a lyricist. I heard that. I'm like, I can see and visualize that. My question is going to be this. What do you want people to take away from your legacy as a writer? What do you want people to take away? If there's one word, a couple sentences, what would you want them to take away?
I want people to be free. And but the truth sets you free. And by that, I mean living your truth. You know, that can be free from negativity, that can be free from self-doubt, that can be freedom from drugs and alcohol. You know, I always say my motto is to paint poetic justice against the backdrop of heavy keystrokes. And whatever that freedom is for you, don't be bound by anything, you know. And I just hope that my books can act as sort of an underground railroad to freedom. You know, sometimes people need a little bit more to be waking up. You know, we are different kind of sleepers. Some people are light sleepers. One little knock and they're up. That's my husband. One little sound, one eye's open. Some people, you gotta punch them around a little bit. Some people gotta throw water on them. And so for those people who are not light sleepers, I hope that reading one of my books will help to inspire them to dig deeper into their own legacy and their own history of who they are, and set them free from whatever burdens and captivities may be holding them in their personal or professional life. You know, we all go through stuff, and you never really know what people are going through. You know, I mean, just with Chadwick Boseman, you know, everybody's praising his silence now as far as him being able to move and do so much with that while battling cancer. But we need to think that way with so-called, you know, our everyday regular people too. Mm-hmm. So it's people going through stuff, and you would never know. So that's what I want people to take from it.
Wow, awesome. You know, I mean, that's enough said. What I'm hearing and what I'm taking away is stay woke.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah, that's it. Wake up and stay woke, but for real, not just don't make it a trend, don't make it a phrase. Like, seriously, in every aspect of your being and your spirit and your life, literally stay woke. It's not time to sleep at all.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for doing the show, EC. I ain't gonna try to mess up your name. I'm gonna use the abbreviation. I'm gonna put the show notes. I'm gonna put your website into your show notes, where they can get your books and, like you said, book you. You taking bookings now?
Virtual bookings, yes. You know, I'm kind of scared to go outside, y'all. You know, I'm trying to stay safe. So virtual bookings, online stuff, Zooms, all of that, definitely. It can all be found on my website too. Fill out that form, get it done.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you,
bro.
Thank you so much.
Final words, bro, before we get out of here.
I would say thank you so much for coming on, EC, and you're a proven replica of your name. I believe your name means Yah lives.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So I believe that Yah is living in you and breathing in you. And you bless the mic, you bless the podcast. This is gonna be fire. I can't wait to get it out. And I can talk all night. But at the end of the day, man, we're excited about your future. I look forward to great things coming from.
With that being said, guys, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast at, and share this episode. We just had the first ever someone come on, Chi-Town representative.
Shout out
Came on and spit. But yeah, once again, thank y'all so much. With that being said, we're going to hit you with our quote. You don't have to get it right.
Just got to get it going.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, EC. You have a blessed night. Say hello. Strong brother. Peace out.
I have a book in me.
This is my friend, my brother.
Thank you, Kelly and Oliver.
I'm a multi-award winning best-selling author.
If you want to start a new business, I suggest you write the book on it.
God woke me up at 2:30 in the morning and I wrote a book.
Some of you got books already. Some of you got novels already.
The lead generator is the book.
You write a book, you leave a legacy to your children.
And I hope you guys listen to these guys so they know what they're talking about.